So, hello. So today's podcast is different from what you've usually seen online. We're actually in a kitchen today, a little bit more relaxed. And today's focus is really about road safety and our awareness to our abilities to drive. This will be launched in Road Safety Week, and I'm joined today by Stuart, our HCQS Director, but also by Vicki. Vicki is one of our colleagues who works within health and safety, you might know her from compliance, who has the Lost and Found charity at Road Safety, which is launched following a personal incident in her life, which she'll talk about. So first of all, Stuart, I'll let you introduce yourself and we'll go on.
Yeah, hello everybody, and hello Vicki. Thanks for joining us, and really getting the story across in Road Safety Week. So Road Safety Week starts 16th of November, and that's just the day after the anniversary of Jordana's accident. And I just really want everyone to know about Jordana, so tell us a little bit about your daughter and your life with your daughter before the accident.
So I had Jordana on the 16th of January 1998 as a single mum. So it was literally me and Jordana. She was, to me, she was the perfect daughter. She was a dream as a baby, an easy baby, grew up into a happy, beautiful young lady, like a mum. No, she was a good child. She was a good, easy child. So then, as time went on, I had Charlie, Jordana's eldest younger brother. Again, I then went on to have Blue, my youngest son. Happy family life, a normal family life. As you say, 15th of November 2014, not only my life, but Charlie and Blue's life, my whole family's lives changed forever. That's when we started to live a nightmare due to the car accident that Jordana was in, along with 4 friends.
Can you tell us about the accident in question?
So sadly, all 5 lost their lives. It was a really bad, foggy, the weather conditions were horrendous. Me being a confident, experienced driver, I wouldn't have felt confident driving in them conditions. So they went out, they were meeting friends. I didn't know that they'd gone out. I thought she were at a best friend's, just having a sleepover. Went out, as that age group do, met up with some more friends. They were going to McDonald's, a normal evening spent with friends. It wasn't until early hours of the Sunday morning I got the knock on the door from the police telling me that there'd been an accident. I couldn't process what these people were doing middle at night, knocking on my door, telling me this. It just didn't seem real. Charlie was at home that evening. Charlie was 13 at the time. He came out of his bedroom questioning me what on earth were going off, why were they there, what. I didn't have the words. How do you tell? I couldn't process it, I couldn't accept it, so how do I then tell my 13-year-old son what's happened? They didn't have Jordana's friend, a best friend, Megan. They didn't have Megan's address and details. I went with the police officers to Megan's house, and I was the one to tell Megan's mum what had actually happened. At that point, I there was nothing I could do for Jordana. That I'd had the worst information given to me, whereas Megan, there was still hope for Megan.
Okay.
So Megan was my priority then. Jordana and Megan was inseparable. So I needed to be there for Megan and do what I could for Megan and Megan's mum. Like I said, sadly, Megan did lose her life.
And I think it's one to say that the accident itself, there wasn't anything involved. It was simply, they'd gone out to McDonald's, it was a bad bit of weather, and it was just a really unfortunate accident. But I think when we've had chats before, you've said it's just because of the inexperience of driving in that type of weather condition, isn't it?
Absolutely. There were no drugs, alcohol, speeding, literally nothing other than the inexperience and driving to the weather conditions. So not only was the 5 in Jordana's vehicle, there was another vehicle involved, just with one, just the driver, and he suffered life-changing injuries. So it's not just he were going to work and his life changed forever, and he's got to also live with that. So it's not just about yourselves, it's others as well.
And that's why we're talking today, because obviously this is about road safety and everybody being completely aware of their own awareness of, are they tired? Do they know the journey? What's the weather going to be like? And I suppose when we're younger, our parents would always say, text me when you get home. And we've always like, I always forget. But actually, it's because people are aware that they just want to make sure that they're home safe. Now, I know, Stuart, we've got over 500 commercial vehicle drivers, but it's nearly every single person who drives to and from work. It's not just about the fact you're driving a company car, you've got somewhere where you want you to be safe. We know it's about everybody just being aware of their, I can't remember the word I said earlier, aware of their limitations of what could potentially happen in this scenario.
So, we have vehicles that drive all over the country, all times of the day, all times of night, all weather conditions. And we're really reinforcing to everybody that, if you don't feel safe driving, then don't drive. That's absolutely fine. We'll make the necessary arrangements. Nothing is more important than everyone's safety in making sure that they go home every day. And then bringing it back to Jordana, from a perspective, it doesn't end on the 15th of November, does it? It's the weeks, the months, the years after. And the information that you find out at a later time through the coroner, etc. How did that come across, and how do you process that?
I don't think you ever do. People say time heals, time it gets better. Yes, it does. You learn to live with it easier, but it doesn't make it better, or you just that is it. You just learn to live with it. Obviously, the inquest, that was nearly a year later, a year after the accident. Having sat through the inquest and having to listen to all the details from the other Jordana's friends, obviously what happened, there was witness statements, injuries that I didn't know about because they're not my child.
Yeah.
So it all came out at the inquest. It was absolutely heartbreaking to sit and listen. I thought what I'd gone through were bad enough, but I realised then that there's always somebody worse off.
Yes. And then, how did it feel when your sons said that they want to start driving when they came of age?
Oh.
That must have been extremely difficult.
It was, but Charlie and Blue were so different. Charlie was eager he could not wait to get behind a wheel. Whereas Blue, it took a year from him being at the age, being able to drive, he could have applied for his licence. He hung back, and there were no, he didn't have a passion to drive, he weren't. And if ever I asked him, he'd be like, well, you take me everywhere, I don't need to drive. Grandad will take me. So I don't know, looking back, was he scared of driving? Did he see the potential, what does happen? So for me, I was glad that Blue didn't want to drive, because I just had to worry about Charlie driving, whereas now Blue does drive. So yeah, it is a worry, and as Tina said earlier, you say text me when you get there, and there's always that what if.
Of course.
We know what does happen.
Yeah.
And is that why you've started the Lost and Found road safety campaign?
It is. We're never going to stop it.
Can you tell us a bit about it? 'Cause I don't know if many people in work will actually know what this is all about.
Absolutely. So, as you can see, we're going to schools, businesses, anywhere, anybody that will have us, anybody that will listen, and we've got a presentation, very factual, it's very sensitive and emotional. So we go in, explain what's happened, the reality, what does happen, can happen, with a view to prevent. As I say, we're never going to stop it. We can only try and prevent people from being in my shoes, our situation. So we can only hope. I know from seeing the response we get that it does have an impact, and people do listen.
It does. I mean, the feedback we've had from the sessions that you've done at Step Up events, etc., have been very powerful, really useful. And that's what we're trying to get across in this podcast for Road Safety Week. I mean, we have a lot of new and inexperienced drivers, school leavers, people coming out of university, etc., that are put in company vehicles and expected to drive everywhere. So what's the one thing that you would want to get across to that age range of drivers or inexperienced drivers? Doesn't necessarily have to be that age, but obviously if they haven't driven and they're starting to drive our vehicles, what message would you give to them?
Take your time and give yourself time. There's things in the presentation that we're not traffic officers, we're not educational people. We speak from experience, and I don't know. It's the distractions. We focus more on turn your radio down, put your phone away. As we know, you don't want your phones anyway, but put your phone out of sight. The temptation's not there. Don't be having a group of friends, loud. Eating. We're all guilty of eating. Concentrate. Think about not only yourself, but other drivers. Have they left the indicator on? Are they going to turn? Is he going to brake? You don't know if somebody's going to step out in front of the car. Just concentrate. That's
a really important aspect that we're trying to get across, is the passenger is a really important person for the driver, and we've got videos and we've got evidence that 9 times out of 10 they want to go to sleep after a shift, so they'll be the ones that are asleep, and the driver is then driving alone, but that effect can make them more sleepy. So what we're saying is, be attentive, be alert, watch out for the driver, because basically he's in charge of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's been a couple of recent severe incidents within the industry where that's happened, and the passenger's been asleep or the people in the back of the van have been asleep. But it's about lending that support to the driver to make sure that they are fully alert, attentive, but also to have that conversation. So if the fog comes in, if the rain is really, really heavy, the road conditions change, and they can change in an instant, have that conversation, say let's just pull off.
I suppose even challenge the driver. If the driver looks tired, challenge him and say, mate, I don't think you're going to manage this journey. It's not a let's rush home or let's get somewhere. It's I'm putting my safety in your hands, and I might be asleep for 45 minutes of the hour journey, but I'm entrusting you to actually get me to where we want to go.
It's funny you should say that, because that is one of the questions that we say, because when we're going to the schools, it's 16, 17-year-olds, and that is one of the questions that I ask at the end. Would you have the confidence, after listening to what we've just said, would you have the confidence in challenging the driver? Would you say, turn your radio down, slow down, put your phone away? Would you be confident in speaking up?
Yeah, and I guess as well, you've also got in our company cars, we've got Samara, so or Samsara, sorry, and their speeding is tracked. We know straight away, but we know when people might leave their company vehicle and get into their own car where it's not tracked. You've not got a black box. You want to go home. We all know what it's like. I need to get there. I want to get there in an hour. I can sort that out. Motorways open. You're rushing to get somewhere, or you're distracted and something. It's very easy to immediately switch off those sensors and just like general everyday life.
Yeah.
I need to get there in the next 10 minutes. I need to push my way through that bit of traffic there. I can see a spot, but actually, if you see a spot, don't necessarily take it, because the person behind the car there is probably aiming for that as well. And it's just generally being aware of your own self.
It's being aware of your own self, but obviously, we send out groups of people to site, and they'll go in crew buses and minibuses. And what used to happen years and years ago, and thankfully I think we're out of that now, is that you'd finish the shift, you'd all get back in the van to go, and they'd appoint the apprentice or the new boy to drive, so they could all get to sleep in the back. But you could be serving a death sentence. You don't know the experience of the driver. You ask them to drive a great big van that's fully loaded with people. That's really, really dangerous, and that can't happen. Just because everyone else wants to get to sleep, you've all got to be in it together to make sure that everyone gets home safely.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, definitely. And is there anything like, obviously, like you say, you go to school, but do people in the office, because I know in Doncaster when it happened, it obviously impacted Doncaster. A lot of people heard about it and saw about it, but obviously you've got colleagues as well that was there. Do people still come and talk to you when their kids are reaching that age to drive and ask you anything, or just talk to you in confidence about the fact that they're nervous about seeing their kid, their niece or nephew, everybody else take it to the vehicle?
That's interesting, because before we'd done the step ups, so we've done the plant step up, signalling step up, before that, I'm going to say no. Since then, obviously people are aware. Yeah. So it's 11 years since, so a lot of people at the time, they've moved on. And it surprised me how many people, obviously, they know me, they speak to me, that didn't know. So I don't walk around with a label on me. So, and they're not gonna know. Whereas now they do, and it's nice, dare I say, that they do acknowledge it. I was stopped last Monday a week after the signalling one by somebody. I didn't know his name, I didn't know what department he was from, and we had a lengthy conversation in Eager House, and he was positive, supportive. He actually gave me a hug, and it was nice. It's nice to know that people do listen, and what we're doing, they appreciate it, because it is hopefully going to benefit the younger generation.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you say, you're going out to schools and things like that, and those young people who are eager to get in a car and eager to drive and get somewhere, they're the ones you're focusing on there. But like you say, we've got drivers in the business who've been driving 10, 20, 30 years. In their mind, they're like, I know how to drive, I know how to get to A to B. But actually, that's just doesn't mean that they're good drivers. It doesn't mean they know what to do in a situation. They've just been on the road longer, and that's completely different.
You get complacent, I think, and sometimes you've maybe done it yourself, used to it travelling. You get somewhere and you think, how have I just got from
Yeah.
there to here?
Yeah.
And you're on autopilot and you do just do it.
And that's it. I mean, modern vehicles take away that element of driving, because it does an awful lot for you now that it never did.
Yeah.
And we're asking people, you just switch on when you get behind the wheel. Don't go into autopilot. Make sure you get there in one piece safely. I mean, how does it feel? I mean, it's been come up to 11 years now, but how does it feel when you're on the road and you see other drivers? How does that make you feel?
Again, funnily enough, twice this week on my way to work, there's been an incident. Like Tina said, there's a gap, and they just speed, and they're in. 10 years ago, if I got to a point where I could have got out of my car and said, "What are you doing?" it would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if what's happened has changed me as a person, but it does still anger me, because I know what does happen.
Yeah.
And would they still behave the way that they are doing if they'd experienced the tragedy and the loss around a road accident?
So you just want to get a big red sticker and stick it on the car and say, "That's my warning from you, pay attention."
Vicki, who I do the presentations with, she will get out, and she's got cards in her car, and she will say, "You need to have a look, you need to look at this information and think about what you're doing."
And that's the whole purpose of your campaign, of Road Safety Week, of everything that we do as a business, is to make people think twice. That red mist comes down, when driving vehicles, and we just want people to give that split second thought as to what could potentially happen.
Yeah, definitely.
So as part of Road Safety Week then, because obviously Road Safety Week falls within the week of anniversary of the loss of Georgiana and her friends, is there one message you'll say to everybody, not just your commercial vehicles, but anybody who gets in a car, whether they're driving or they're a passenger, that you just wanted to say, just that week, just take that 1 second and do this one thing? What would that message be to anybody?
It's not just that week though. Anytime you get in a vehicle, whether you're a driver, passenger, just think, just consider what you're doing, your actions, and other people. For me, the reason why we do what we do, like I said, we're never going to stop it, we can only try and prevent it. Over the years, as Stuart said, we're coming up to 11 years. In those 11 years, Jordana will be 27 now. So over the years, I've watched Jordana's friends. They've grown up, they've got houses, they've had families. And for me, yes, I am going to have grandchildren because I've still got Charlie and Blue, but I'm never going to experience my daughter having a baby of her own. Where would she be now? What would she be doing? She did have aspirations. She wanted to work with children in some form. I'm never going to know, I'm never going to have that, and I'm never going to get the opportunity to plump my daughter's wedding dress. I just want people to think, stop and think, and hopefully they won't experience what I've experienced. It is a living nightmare, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
And like you were saying earlier, obviously there's the driver in the other car. I know you've spoken to him since, and you've gone through that, and you've told him he's obviously not at fault, but he will forever live with not only the injuries to himself, but knowing that he was in an accident where he was the only one out of 6 who survived, and the other ones being, well, I often say children really, because despite the fact they're 17, we still class them as children, don't we? So what he must go through every single day, just the impact.
I wouldn't like to think what he has to deal with. obviously he were there, he saw it, he's witnessed it, everything going off around him and the vehicle that Jordana was in. And not only that, I've spoken to the paramedics. I can only imagine that they've
Seen things.
yeah, and they've obviously, there was two that I know stayed with Jordana and did what they could for Jordana. And I have actually met them, and I've spoken to the police, the family liaison officers. I'm still in contact with one of the family liaison officers now, and I know that people are not in the jobs that they did. They've left the role that they've been to uni for, they've trained for, they've had a passion to do, and because of that one incident that was too much for them to cope with mentally, what they've seen, what they've had to deal with.
And you don't realise the impact on so many people of
You
such
don't.
an event. You know, you'd never think of that, would you?
You don't.
You know, these are professional people that are trained and competent and are trained to deal with things like this, but you know, that is just too much.
And they've wanted to do that job
Yeah.
for so many years, you know. Like I say, they've trained for it, and unfortunately, they just can't do it.
So what about the school? So obviously you got the worst news possible. You was there when her best friend and with her mother, but then the whole school had to know that 5 of their friends had been in an accident. So how did it impact like the thousands of kids that were in that school?
The whole community rallied round, pulled together. The support from schools, businesses, it was something else. But again, that's another reason why we do what we do. So we do try and raise funds, and that, as much as what it's a contradiction, we are trying to prevent a family from being in our situation. If they find themselves like me, us, then we've got the funds there to be able to help a family financially. And whether that be you've got a weekly shop, you can take a week off work. Imagine if I'd have been self-employed at the time, you've got no money, you've got no income. So that's why we do the fundraising part. As I said, yes, we're trying to prevent it, but if a family does find themselves dealing with this, then hopefully we can help them a bit financially.
Okay.
I think for me, I'm trying to turn such a negative, an absolute tragedy, into a positive for other people.
Yeah.
So, as I've said time and time again, we're never going to stop it. We're trying to prevent it.
Yeah.
And Jordana lives on, and if her story saves somebody else doing something awful,
Absolutely.
she's the reason why that's happened.
Absolutely, and that's why it's called The Lost and Found, because we've lost Jordana, but we've found her legacy, which this will continue. We'll do however many presentations, we'll visit however many businesses, schools, anybody that will listen.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.